The original John Lyon was a yeoman farmer from Harrow 500 years ago and was given a royal charter by Queen Elizabeth I. With that, he established Harrow School, and he also built a farm in the area now known as St John's Wood. He used what's now known as the Harrow and Edgware Road to take his goods to market into central London, and it was the toll that he exacted off those roads that formed the basis of the charity's endowment today. So over the past 500 years it's obviously grown into something quite significant, and it's the income from those funds that we use to fund children and young people's charities in North West London today. So we have a large endowment, and we have around £400 million in assets that we work hard to be able to grant to charities in London. With the onset of COVID, exacerbated by funding cuts over the last 10 years to the youth sector, we could see that there was a real need to go above and beyond what we would normally grant in a year. So typically we would grant 10 to 12 million pounds. And we thought if ever there was the proverbial rainy day, then it really is now. And so I went to my trustees to say, look, I think we need to invest a significant amount within our beneficial area, within North and West London, not just to try and save some of the charities that we've been working with over the last 30 years, but to really help them thrive and get through this difficult period. And so in addition to that 10 to 12 million pounds, we will also be granting an additional 22 million pounds that we've taken out of our endowment because of the impact of COVID. So about 6-7 years ago, we could see that cuts to local authorities' budgets was really having an impact upon youth services in particular. And because there's no statutory requirement to provide youth services, in fact many have just closed down, so any youth clubs that exist are often funded just by charities alone. So we decided to establish something called Young People Foundations in each of the boroughs in which we operate. And the first ones to be established were Young Brent, Young Barnet and Young Harrow. And what they effectively do is to bring children and young people's charities together, so real grassroots charities, along with local businesses, the local authority and then funders. And they act as a conduit to be able to give advice to local organisations, to be able to facilitate partnerships between business and young people's charities, and also, most importantly, to raise funding on behalf of some of these really tiny charities that exist. So they will often put in consortium bids to large funders, which otherwise normally small charities wouldn't be able to do. So Young Barnet, for example, over the last 5 years has been able to raise over £1.5 million for really tiny grassroots charities here in Barnet. Now, by establishing the Young People Foundations, we effectively have paid and are still paying for their core costs. So that's what enables them to be able to operate without having to fundraise for their existence. Now, the Young People's Foundations have become really important to John Lyon's charity. So they really are part of the social fabric within each of our boroughs. And we will be using them to distribute the additional £22 million that we're going to grant over the next 6 years. So they will be grants around immediate recovery from COVID, replication grants, so where we can see there are organisations in one borough or one part of a borough doing amazing work, but they might need additional funds to be able to replicate that in another borough. The Young People Foundations will help us identify which groups are ripe for that. In addition, we'll also be giving a small grant pot to each of the Young People Foundations, again to be able to trickle down to those really small grassroots charities that we know are really fundamental to the social fabric within our boroughs. So there are so many different success stories. I mean, the YPFs that I just mentioned, they are a fantastic success story for us. It's like our coming of age, and they are our children. But if I think about individual charities, there are some. So, for example, Strength Among Horses. This is a charity based in Barnet. We funded nearly $250,000 to the charity over the last 7 years, and it's basically equine therapy for young children and people who have had some type of psychological disturbance within their life. It could be domestic violence, could be a death in the family, it could be that they have special educational needs, and where normal psychotherapy has not worked. And what they do, they have trained clinical psychologists working with the young people and horses, and so where they learn to care for the horses. This is not about horse riding or grooming or anything like that, but it's about helping them understand the impact of having a relationship with another physical being, a horse, and how to look after that horse, and how to be respectful but intuitive about how that horse is behaving and how it's reacting to you. And we've had cases of where children have not spoken for months, and they have lots of psychology sessions and won't open up, and yet after just 2 sessions of being with a psychologist and within an environment where horses are around, it's like a turnaround situation. The impact has been immense. And it's wonderful to see how many children and young people have managed to go through just that one charity, and how their lives have been positively impacted.